to break the generational cycle of abuse that is going to get passed down to children or to whoever's around. And we must look at that, because Nancy and I know many men in this case, or a couple men, that have gone on to get help, and they have thrived in their next relationships, and they haven't repeated cycle, and therefore, you know, their children, hopefully, and those around them won't repeat the cycle of domestic abuse.
Right.
Do you agree?
Yeah. Well, to an extent, yes.
Yeah.
As you said, you know, there is somebody that I know, a couple people that have been very physically and emotionally abusive to their spouses, and they ended up parting ways. And in the one case, the husband had let go of alcohol, had gone to counseling, met a new woman, they have a child, and they've been married, I guess, now for over 20 years, and he has 3 beautiful children, and him and his wife are amazingly happy, and he's healthy. So I don't think it's impossible, and I think that if they're willing to seek the help and they're open in acknowledging that there is a problem, that, yeah, it can work and it can be resolved. It's just such a scary thing.
It's a really scary thing. And I think a couple of things, when you are abused, it's such a shameful place. And I read this, hold on, if I can, where did I put my phone? You know, I think a lot of with abuse comes guilt, because you believe I know for those out there, it's so hard to believe, but you truly think it is your fault when you're in it. You are convinced it is your fault when you're in it. Mm-hmm. And the tremendous amount of shame and not thinking anybody will. You want people to think your life is perfect.
Right.
Because if they don't, then your walls crumble, because then you have to be accountable to get out, and you're so afraid for so many reasons. I mean, fiscally, obviously out of physically harm's way. I mean, that's right. The obvious. But, you know, I think starting a whole new life, I mean, being alone and single is, but when you have kids and, you know, I think the director of the movie, who also acted in it, he said, I have a lot of male bias, so I had to get coached on the subject to understand. And he's like, the question that is often asked by people, and we're going to use women like I did in my stories today, just as the example, because this movie is based on a woman getting abused, but obviously men get abused too, is he said, what people always say, why doesn't she leave? Why doesn't she leave? And he said back, he goes, but the question we're asking the wrong question. We should be asking, why do men harm?
Yeah.
And it's so true. Like, we put this emphasis on women, but we're not by asking them that and putting the pressure. We got to figure out why they harm, how to get them out, blah, blah, blah. It's like a conglomerate of things.
Or maybe ask them, why are they staying? Not why can't they leave? Why do you stay?
Well, you know, that was the general question. Why do you stay?
I feel like a lot of women.
Real quick, so you can answer it right. So I think what he's saying is, when we ask that question, well, why do you stay? Mm-hmm. And he's like, we're immediately putting them on the defense. Like, what the fuck, get out. And I think until you're in it, you don't know. So he said, what we should be asking people is, why is this man harming her? And he's, in other words, I think it's more of a statement, not really a question. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, so go ahead with what you were saying. Sorry.
I was going to say, a lot of women, when they get to that or when they're at that point, they already feel as if they're nothing. They're going to amount to nothing. So what are they going to do without their other half to support them? And that's their only, they feel like that's their lifeline and their way to survive, even though they know they could end up in a body bag and taken out of that house. And some so desperately love their husbands or partners, and they just so desperately want it to work. And they think that one day it will work and he will change and we will make this happen. And they don't realize that there is no light at the end of the tunnel. And that's why battered women syndrome is such a real thing. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to about it, and they think it's a joke. It is a total mental condition.
I think, this goes back in my history. I think I'm not embarrassed to say I'm a victim of domestic violence. And I still to this day protect that person, and and they've gotten better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to slight, but like, I think people think like it's just monstrous and that's all. And there's love and there's passion and charisma and history, and
it's intoxicating.
but there's real love there. Just because someone hits you, doesn't mean that.
Just I'm gonna just get up because that thing's about to fall.
Oh God, on my head. And so I think, and you want to protect that person. You want to protect them because despite that, there's so many good qualities about them. There are. That's just not what they are. What doesn't take away the horrible thing, the act. But so, I mean, it kind of goes with what is that Stockholm syndrome where what is Stockholm syndrome? You
empathize with the person that's
harming you.
Yep.
Correct. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's kind of the same concept, and everybody knows that's real. So I don't.
Yeah. But there is light at the end of the tunnel if you choose to get out, and there are, seek counseling. Go to your friends.
I think there's a couple things.
Family.
You have. I think the debilitating part about abuse, besides the act of either physical, sexual, emotional, especially narcissism. And you and I talk about that.
Yeah.
Narcissism is probably one of the most debilitating things as a person, man or woman, to come out of. It is literally, you are brainwashed. You literally believe something that you're different than the reality of what you actually are. Mm-hmm. And it's insane. And I think narcissism almost puts the most shame from experience, from talking to people. But I think some notes I wrote down is, you have in the healing, I think obviously therapy, but you have to understand challenge the things that your brain believes. So if you're saying I'm worthless or I'm a loser, whatever those things calculated to in your mind, one of the healing techniques, and I journal, but was write a opposite sentence of that.
Yeah.
What you actually are, because you almost have to reprogram your brain to think that you're actually not worthless, not
right.
You're loving, and you're not crazy. Like I think I came out of so many things going, I'm crazy, am I crazy? And that's really hard. Rediscover yourself, do a lot of self-care. I think that's the beautiful journey, is becoming self-aware, which is lonely and hard, but it's worth it. And figure out why you attract these people. I think that's key. Figure out what in them is making that attractive, because a lot of times it's because familiarity. If you grew up with trauma and drama and incidents, believe it or not, even though we say we don't want drama, it's what we'll keep closest because it's what's most familiar.
Yeah. Or what are you attracted to? Were you attracted to in them that made you gravitate and want to build something with them? Because there's always indicators and red flags. As small and tiny and minute as they may be, there's always something that shows you.
Yeah.
Unless they're
100%. No,
an amazing actor.
Wow.
There are some of those.
I think now I know, because I'm able to walk away from red flags that would just be like just nothing to do with that, right? And I'm able to identify and things that trigger me. And so I'm not picking those same type of people. And I'm not picking trauma because it's familiar. Because I noticed when friends started to dissipate, the friends that go away when you start becoming self-aware are the ones that you're most familiar, because they were toxic attachments as friends, trauma bonds. Meaning like all trauma we talk bonding about is other people. So that was our bond, and you start to see that fall away. So I think, you have to see that. But I do think from all the research just throughout the shows, whether it's abusive relationships or XYZ, you go to what is familiar, and familiar is comfortable even when it's bad.
Yes.
And I find that extremely interesting. Guys, do you want to say something? Sorry.
First of all, I'm glad you guys mentioned the side of the abuser to get, that they can get help and rehabilitate themselves.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes we just like demonize the abuser, right? Like they're a lost cause, they're the worst, they're devils. But if you look for the right help, whether it's church, a counselor, there's so many, ways to get help. So I'm glad you guys brought that up. That doesn't have to define you. Just because you might have been that way doesn't mean you have to stay that way. So that's a good thing.
And I think
everybody has their moments.
I think, Frankie, we need to look at all people. I'm not talking about murderers and all.
Yeah.
Because I always.
Even murderers can rehabilitate themselves.
Yeah, but a little bit different.
I know.
I just see people get demonized on TikTok if I don't clarify.
Yeah.
But everybody in life, if you take the steps to get better and work and really stick with it, everybody deserves that opportunity. And again, abusers, and I know this is hard for some people to swallow, they were abused, and if they get help, some people are just evil. Some people are murderers, some people are criminals, some people are abusers, men and women both. And, I mean, they're just going to be evil, and that's that. But most people can rehabilitate themselves if they want to change, and we have to get more programs like that so they're not passing down abusive cycles.
Yeah, and those also, you actually touched the next point I was going to say, where there's some people, maybe when they drink, they become violent, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe, if they do certain drugs or certain things trigger them, they're not necessarily violent all the time, right? So I think when things like that happens, I think the victim tends to think, oh, but he's not like that. Only when he drinks. The victim always tends to, excuse, justify, explain the behavior of the person, and it has to do with the fact, like you mentioned earlier, you're in love with that person so much, you kind of don't want to believe that they're like this monster, quote unquote.
Right.
So psychologically, I think it just affects in so many ways that it's not just pick up and go, and it's just a horrible situation. Me personally, I hate, I'm not big on violence. I'll watch some certain sports, but I don't like fighting.
Yeah.
It's like I get anxious when I see fights. I'm not like, oh my God, look, they're fighting. I'm not that kind of person. I'm like, no, don't I hate just picturing hurting another, person. It gives me anxiety.
It's an ick.
Yeah, Nick. Yeah.
There you go.
Julio, any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree with what everyone says. It's really about admitting to yourself if you're the abuser or you're being abused. Because like you said, sometimes you're just blinded by the relationship or the love that you have for somebody. You're like, oh, they'll never do this on a good day. But when is a good day? Yeah. And then the person that's hitting is like, I went through this, so for me it's kind of normal to act this way. So it's just kind of about finding the correct mindset to finally realize something's not right in both situations. And like you said, I mean, now we can get help with so many ways and just, overcome things and become a better person. So, if it's happening to you or if you're doing it to somebody, just get help.
I think, do you have something else to say? We'll wrap this subject up.
I was just going to add, I don't think anyone, for the most part, is inherently bad or wants to do bad, I think that hurting someone else or being violent is definitely a learned behavior. And just like you learned it or were exposed to it, you can unlearn it and teach yourself
nature versus
to be
100%
a different way. Yeah. So I just wanted to end it with that.
And I want to say one more thing for Julio said. And I think we need to stop excusing because, I was like this, so this is why I am, and start saying, now I know why I am how I am, and therefore I should change.
Right.
Well, I think total blame, and this is a subject for next week. No matter what happens in your life, this is a new theory I learned. Take total blame for it, even if it's not your fault.
Accountability.
Well, this isn't accountability. It's like a theory about tricking the mind, and we'll talk about it next week. It's actually interesting. I think what you said is good. I think it's easier said than done.
Oh, absolutely.
Even in today when there's a lot of help, it has nothing to do with, it's kind of like, it has nothing to do with the help. It has to do with the shame and the fear.
Yeah.
And some of these guys put the fear of God, and girls. I mean, I think any time in our life, I remember I've said things to partners. You and I talked about this in the past, and I'm like, oh God, that was a little bit borderline emotional. Like, can you take a step back? So I think we all have these incidences of life where like, whoa, who was that? You know what I mean? And I, go apologize. And so easier said than done, but I agree. I think 16,800 people in this country die in a domestic situation each year. That doesn't mean necessarily your spouse. It's domestic is domestic, right?
Yeah.
4,000 women die each year from domestic violence directly related with spouse, normally spouse. $2.2 million are spent in our ERs for medical bills. I think they're mostly a lot unpaid. And that's just the ones that get reported per year in the United States. And this isn't to slight men, but it's 95% of abusers are men to women in a relationship. But what I want to say to men or women, if you're in an abusive relationship, is that you're not worthless. Don't be ashamed. You are none of these things, and you keep telling yourself that. And when you can get out, when you're strong enough to get out, whatever you have to do, and that time will come. But know you're worthy of not dying, because it never leads anywhere good if you don't get out, and you will die. And people say, well, oh, it's just a little point. It escalates and it escalates and it escalates. And I don't want to see you die. I might not even know you, but I'm going to cry. Every life is worth it. Every life is worth it. Just ask for help, and the right people will help you, I promise.
You're not alone.
And if you're a
never
family
alone.
member and you see it, help that person. I think a lot of us don't want to get involved, and we see it, and we don't, we don't step up and help.
Yeah.
Or when you are, you're told, oh, well, it's not that bad. It's that bad.
Yeah.
It's that bad. When someone's calling you, and even if it isn't, are you willing to take the risk of walking in on your friend, male or female, dead? It's that bad.
Yeah, I want
And
to
if
add
you're
to that,
wrong
too.
and they hate you, who gives a fuck? At least you did the right thing. And I would do it 10 times over to not risk somebody dying. Go ahead.
I was going to say, when you have a friend that is going through something and you're hearing about it all the time, you're just like, I can't hear it anymore. I don't want to listen to it. I'm not going to be here for it. You talk about it all the time, yada, yada, yada. Do not do that to your friend, because it might take them 2 months. It might take them 10 years. It might take them 20 years before they finally get the courage to do what they need to do to get out. But it is your job as someone who loves them to be there for them and support them and lift them up no matter what.
We always say our job as friends isn't to tell people what they're doing wrong. They already know what they're doing wrong. I mean, that doesn't mean don't guide them and say, if they ask, you feel like this little, or,
Be honest.
Be honest, but our job is to be friends and real friends and show up authentically. And anyway, just go back. I'm here. You can DM tribecalledjessofficial@gmail.com. All my socials. That's not to get you to follow me. You can message me on socials without following me. I'm here. I will get you help, point you in the right direction, whatever I can do. So anybody out there in abuse, and let's repeat the hotline and the text again, and then we'll move on to why I like younger guys, and then we'll get John Canford out of here. If you are in a domestic violence situation, you can text 88788 from your phone, 88788 from your phone. And if you are, I think I gave this out wrong last time. It is 800-779-7233. That's 800-779-7233. And that is the domestic violence hotline. And we love you guys. Hugs to anybody going through it. And
You're not alone. You're not alone.
Okay. So I don't know how I reverse, but we know I like my younger men. And Frankie sends this reel. Hold on. John, can we play the reel? We're going to play this reel because Frankie sends this to me today.
Do guys prefer younger or older women?
Older women are more confident and assured of themselves, know what they want, have higher standards, and hold you accountable. So younger women.
I love her reaction.
Her facial expression.
Yeah.
So what
Do
the
guys
reel
prefer
said-
younger or older
okay.
women?
She asked him, "Do you guys prefer older or younger women?" And he's like, "Older women are confident. They're more whatever.
Yeah, they hold you
All these great
accountable.
things, they hold you accountable." And he's like, "So younger women." However, in watching that, I'm like, there is truth to that. I think it goes for older women and very confident women.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of guys, and this could go for girls too, but I can only speak from my experience, that are uncomfortable with extremely confident women. And with that comes older. And they're going to go for easy versus confident. I don't want to say challenging, but secure.
Yeah, I made my hubby work for it.
Tell us. He's younger than you. How much?
He is a little younger than me.
Little
Only
bit.
by a year and a half.
My last was 8 years younger, 8.5.
Yeah.
And I'll go to 35.
I mean, hey,
whatever.
whatever
If
floats
it's-
your boat.
If they're 29, it's fine. Nothing below.
They're an adult.
I mean, I just love the energy. Like, so the idea of you brought this back, the movie, the idea of you with Anne Hathaway and that kid, and he's younger, and they end up getting, anyway, that brought back the whole trend now of people talking
yes, I haven't
about
seen that movie
Oh,
yet.
got it.
And
Okay.
she was like 24 and she was 40 in this movie, and it did work out. He went out and found himself 5 years later.
Don't ruin the movie.
But I mean, for me, it's like that energy.
What
the
kind of
sex is
energy?
good. And they're very trainable, and they're very willing. What I like about them right now,
They're very willing.
well, I'm still on my celibacy kick until I decide to break it, so there's no limit. But no, I mean, you know what I like about them now, and I'll say this, and I said this before I got off all dating apps. All the ones that were younger than 35 had a plan, and they were going to take me out, and this is the plan. I just didn't
I
go.
love that.
Every single one, when we were out in DC, asked the 28-year-olds, the whatever-year-olds, I mean, they talked proper. The other one's like, "Yo, what's up? What are you doing? By the way, I have a great house. You know, my kids are away." I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I'm not trying to come bang you, dude. So, but I do think guys like easy a lot of times. All right, so go ahead with your story, Rob, because I wanted to kind of preface all that.
Well, I was the first person. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe a second. But first long committed relationship that he's had was someone even remotely close to his age.
Were they younger?
Yeah, way younger. And what was funny when we first met, wasn't interested, and then I saw him again, and then we kind of built this bond via being like really good friends.
Hey,
And
it's
yeah,
Bond.
Really good friend.
And you know,
Hey, what kind of-
subtle.
What kind of
Yeah.
bond was it?
That one. That's what I was like. I'm like doing all this
I know it was just like scissoring over here.
Yeah, there was no trimming.
tripping. That's what I was doing.
But it was really funny because he said, you know, I really need somebody that can match my energy and keep up with me, and I don't know if you're going to be able to do that.
Boy, did he bite off more
And-
than he could chew.
Yeah, little did he know, baby boy had to put on his big boy britches and keep up with me.
I love when young guys or girls say that to me. And Carrie Ann's always like, "Why am I 27 and I'm in bed and you're still up till 6 a.m.?" And I'm like,
I'm a night owl. Yeah.
I'm a morning, noon, and I have the energy for a life. I mean, now I value my sleep, but I love when they try and say, I'm like, "Bitch, you are asleep and I am still on go." Like, and I've been at Echo till 5. Remember, hardly anything to drink for me
Yeah.
at Aoki. Perfectly awake, didn't go to bed till 5, 6 a.m.
That was so much fun.
Pretty much sober, danced our asses off. I drove us that
Yeah,
night.
I came home and he was just like, "Oh my God, babe, you're sober." And I'm like, "Hell yeah." I just danced
our
every
asses
bit
off,
of alcohol I
yeah.
drank off
Yeah.
that night. It was so much fun.
So I love when younger kids try to feed me that shit. I was like, you better hope you have my energy.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's funny
hot.
that he thought that. But
And then, how did you make them work for it?
I would hang out with them and then I would ghost him.
Oh,
And then
After we just said don't ghost people.
and then we'd
How
go out.
mature of you.
catch
I
and
was,
release.
you know what?
Catch
I
and release.
go through eras.
Catch and release. See, that's much better with the term. when you
Okay,
say.
it was catch and release.
Catch
I
and
was
release,
going
yeah.
through my bodybuilding era.
Oh, yeah.
And so I didn't want to drink that much, even though I still drank vodka.
Yeah.
But But I didn't want to go out on a boat. I thought that was kind of lame. Like, why would you want to spend your weekend on a boat on the river, be smelly, when I could be going to
Yeah.
Cafe Citron and dancing my ass
it was
off on
just
tables?
a different time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I finally,
Cafe
I
Citron.
blew him off like 3 times, and finally the last
She
time I was,
blew him 3 times. Go ahead.
Blew him off.
but the
I'm
last
so
time I was like, hey,
confused.
I'm going to come out on the boat. He's like, oh, really? I was about to leave. I didn't think you were going to come because you said no the last 3 times. I said, no, but is it okay if my 15-year-old son comes with us? he's just like, well, we're going to this festival, and I don't know if that's appropriate. And I'm like, nah, he's fine. We'll be fine. And then
That's
ever
my
since
Nancy.
then, we literally were inseparable. We were on the boat every weekend.
Yeah.
Wait, was a 15-year-old a joke or he came?
Jordan.
No, it was Gavin.
Gavin.
Nobody brought him?
Yeah.
Nancy, she's like, I will bring Oshi. They're like, I'm like, oh, I'm not missing out because of my dog. He's coming.
No, it was like one time with my 15-year-old, and he loves the water, and
So he charmed your husband's name, Robert?
Rob.
He charmed Rob. Thank
did
your son.
charm Rob.
Thank Gavin for it.
But what was funny, he still had this thing where he wanted to be single Rob and be, all about him. And I was older, so I'm like, all right, if you want to date, it is no longer just about you. I also have 3 children, so, you have to we should be the center of your world, not you. Like those play days are over if you want to. If you want a relationship.
He was single, no kids, and you had 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what was funny, we
It
would
was the right choice.
a little bit on
obviously.
and off because he still kind of wanted to do a single thing. And he would play video games with the kids online. I'd be like, guys, no. You can't do that.
You don't want another 4th teenager.
So then by the end, he's like, no, I can't do this. He's like, I'm all in.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yep.
And that was it. But I had to lay the law down.
Because Rob knew. Guys. Because what do I always say? Life is too short
Yeah.
for shitty sex and bad relationships.
All I understood from the story is that he needed people to play video games with, and he found 3.
Oh my God.
That's what I got.
Well,
from the
he
story.
found 2. He found 2.
Well, I'm going to continue my search. I might end my celibacy if I find the right Viking, but until then, we'll see.
It's going to
I might.
happen.
I might. Oh, it'll happen. I'm sure when I least expect it. Anyway, what I was saying, life is too short for shitty sex and bad relationships. And if it's not giving you income, inspiration, or orgasm, why are we fucking with it, guys? Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Take good care, guys. Later.